of this year was like for all Nigerians, one way or the other, were affected. The CBN said, look, we want more payment platforms, online payment platforms to be used. You can use them. Then there was a cash shortage, as people couldn't get cash to do the very basic things, such as pay for your taxi, particularly taxi fares. It was very challenging. Paying for petrol was a difficult thing. Those who tried to use the online payment platform were having problems upon problems upon problems. Right? It was terrible. But ladies and gentlemen, something very interesting happened for those 2 months in particular, as people were trying to, adjust until the Senate met. Some states took the CBN to court, and then eventually the Supreme Court said, okay, we'll stay this practice, let's hear it, everything is status quo, and then eventually they will be valid to the end of the year. But now, hey, they're up indefinitely. Great, fine. But my 2 questions this morning: first one, what gains were noticed at the start of the redesign policy? Remember, in the final days of the Buhari administration, that's when this redesign policy was, started. Remember that? Okay. First question: what gains were noticed at the start of the redesign policy with the new notes? Some of you call it the recoloration, but hey, it is still a redesign. Have it as you see it. The second one is, how frequently, right now, the last day of November, how frequently do you use the online payment platforms? So when you call in or when you send a message to respond to this conversation, you have to, at the end, tell me how frequently you use your online or the online payment platforms available to you. So let's get straight to it now. 017-923-0002, 017-923-0007, 08179230002, 08179230007. At Nigeria Info PH, at Nigeria Info PH is where you find us on Facebook and on X at Nigeria Info PH. The WhatsApp and Telegram number 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416.
The views and opinions shared on this program do not represent the position of Nigeria Info FM. Nigeria Info, let's talk.
All right, so hello, Port Harcourt. This morning, once again, it's a business conversation talking about Thursday, and I'm asking, following the redesign of the Naira from late last year and how it affected all Nigerians from February, March, even parts of April, just before the elections, right? Just before the elections, too, was also a big challenge, but it had greatly improved. It led, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, if you listen to us from outside the country, I'll be shocked. It led to people virtually buying the Naira. And then the POS, the money agents, became public enemy number 1 in this country. At the same time, they became the most powerful, most influential people in Nigeria, all in the space of 3 months. There were skits, there were jokes about this. There were shows that depicted some of the POS agents who were now buying cars. Some of them who even opened other outlets. Some of them were even buying houses, because they became, for all intents and purposes, the banks that the people knew. So what were the gains? What did you notice? What were you happy about? What were you displeased about? And now, are you using the online payment platforms? 90.3, good morning. Hello, Port Harcourt.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you, Jude. It's Muriel from Africa.
Go on, Muriel.
Jude, I think the Naira Redesign policy was one of the most useless policies rolled out by the Buhari administration.
Really? Why?
Absolutely, Jude. To what end? What economic value did it bring to Nigerians?
First and foremost, redesigning your notes is a global practice so as to counter what do you call it? Counterfeiters, and also to boost the value of your notes. You get rid of the old, worn out notes and bring in new ones. It's a global practice. It's not a Nigerian thing. It's a global practice.
I know, Jude. I know the global practice. And at that time, Jude, who didn't need that? It was a tradition around there. And he looked at the Naira note and he decided, and he selected the color. And he just went into it. You see, I think it was a just policy to undo one or two politicians because of the elections at that time. But trust me, Jude, those policies that were rolled out for their own selfish gains really pained. It really came as a thorn in the face of Nigerians. I suffered. In fact, I think most of it is housewives, women that go to the market, trying to cook for their families, that really bore the brunt of it, Jude. I suffered. When you get into the market, Jude, before you come out, it will take up 6 to 7 hours. You have to go around the market over and over again, begging for the certain seller that please might transfer. So say no, you go to the next one and I transfer. No, you toil just to cook for your family. It was so painful, Jude. So I think if there was no economic value at that time for us Nigerians, and if you had a POS friend, trust me, that was in fact that girl or that guy was just like a mini god, a demigod to you at that time.
Indeed.
And those that have friends in the bank, somebody was boasting to me that he has a friend in the bank, and he did not run short of Naira notes. Trust me, because his best friend was a banker. So trust me, Jude, it was given that policy that made me. I didn't hate somebody that I'm still angry with the nation at this point. I wasted a lot of money just because of that policy.
All right. George is in Iwafa. George, good morning to you, please.
Good morning, Jude.
Good morning. Hello, George.
Hello, Jude. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go on, George. Good morning.
I said the policy initiated by the federal government at that time, I think it was not a bad policy, but I think the timing and the way they went about the policy, that was the problem. And, when the new design was established, they made sure, I think the cash was now limited. There was no much inflow of cash. So they wanted Nigerians to use the online
platform. Method. Yes, which is why I asked. I forgot to ask the other caller. No, are you using the platforms more now?
Now, I use it, but not as frequently as that time.
Interesting.
Because now the cash is more available. And the problem the federal government encountered was that if you are telling us to use the online market platform, you need to make the server very strong. Because at that point now, the reason why many Nigerians find it difficult to do those online transactions was that a lot of Nigerians troop into the online banking system. And you don't have that capacity to carry about just 50 million persons at that same time doing transaction online. Most of the time declining. If you go to filling stations, supermarkets, they say decline. And there was a time I think we went to a gas station, a filling station to fill gas. So we went there and the guy was, cash. We had to transfer and the bank debited us. Successful. But the person said the person had not received
the confirmation. So you couldn't leave.
Wait. Yeah. So we had to wait. They're telling that we can't. The filling station didn't give us the gas. We had to find cash to pay. It was the next day they now called that they have received their alert. So you see, it was hell for Nigerians that period. So I feel it was a good initiative, but it was not properly planned.
Okay.
That's the thing. All
right. Good initiative, not properly planned. George, thank you very much for your comment. Let's get to WhatsApp now. Start to read your comments. 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416 at Nigeria Info PH. At Nigeria Info PH is where you find us on Facebook and on X. At Nigeria Info PH is where you find us on Facebook and on X. Looking at the now it's open to accept and issue old and new Naira notes. So I'd like to say this probably brings to the finality of this saga. And let's ask, what were the gains you noticed at the start of the redesign policy? And two, How frequently right now do you use the online payment platforms? How often do you transfer? How often do you use your online platforms to recharge your card, to pay for your TV subscription, to pay for your power, to pay for your water bills, your medical bills? How often do you use it right now? Because that was the aim of the CBN's policy. Well, in fact, if not the primary aim at that time. We need to get to the point where we have less cash in circulation. People can readily track and monitor how money is moving around the area. And so, payment platforms. Good morning, Jude. I think Nigerians do not give that particular policy enough time for it to reach its full potential. It would have checkmated some of the things that we are seeing today. Remember, during that period, how many policemen would be on the road collecting money from you? That time, people did not have cash. And so the bus drivers were even very, very stern in their looks. And so the policemen found it difficult to even collect cash from people. Do you want to transfer 100 naira to a policeman at the junction? No. But today, look at the streets of Port Harcourt. Everywhere you go, the policemen are still collecting 100 naira. And even here, it's even 200 naira in the more remote areas. That's funny. That's funny. Do you transfer 100 naira at the junction when you see the policeman? Once again, can't just get a breather. asking the question this morning, what you think the gains were, what you noticed during the start, emphasis on the start of the Naira redesign policy from last year into this year. Now, by the third month of this year, it hit Nigeria really, really bad. I don't think Nigerians have ever experienced such a scenario where the physical cash, people had money in their accounts, people had money in the banks, but they couldn't purchase items. And I remember back then, people calling in, almost in tears in some scenarios. Look, I have money. I had to go around, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And all of this because of this new Naira redesign policy. Now, some people have faulted, the policy either because of the start, right? The timing of the policy. And some people said the policy as a whole was fraught with hindrances. There was nothing great about it. But on the other side of the divide, you have people who say, look, it's a great idea. You need to counter the counterfeiters. You also need to, as it were, keep the aesthetics of your currency in good stead. A lot of the notes, and if I'm honest, notes have been used, abused, disabused, malabused, and then reduce the amount of physical cash people were carrying or storing in their houses. Who would have thunk it that because of these policies, we could see bags, and I mean rice bags of Naira notes coming out of creeks, coming out of bushes, some of them torn, some of them eaten by rats, all in a bid to get the new Naira notes, or at least keep the value of what was on those notes. Who would have thunk it? So people were keeping money from circulation. That's evil. If you're a banker, by the way. But for some of you, we're just protecting our money. Zion is on the line from GRA. I wonder what Zion would say concerning this scenario. Zion, what were the positives for you for the redesign policy? What did you notice?
Reduction of crime.
Reduction of crime. Interesting.
Nothing went down to zero because no way to transfer money to anybody. The security of our currency became utmost. I know we have issues with that infrastructure. When I mean infrastructure, the network to move this money from one terminal to another. Maybe the network was arranged, or there were no due diligence, or network providers were not consulted or asked into buying to the policy. I felt that was the problem. But apart from that, my brother, that was the best time in the history of Nigeria. The Naira started gaining momentum in the FX market. People start bringing out money back to the bank. The economy started picking up. Even economists attest to that. Money started going into circulation. The buying power became eminent. And I want to beg the federal government to revisit this process.
Revisit the process that left millions of Nigerians stranded, in some cases where they couldn't pay for their meals, they couldn't pay school fees, they didn't have cash to take transport from Rumokoro to Eneka.
We have ever been known for this fire brigade approach. When you tell Nigerians, go get your BBN, they will wait until you give them deadline. Go get your name, they will wait until deadline. Okay, they must wait until that day you give them deadline. That was the problem. If they have adhered before, we would have gotten all this problem. The network providers would have studied the process of the volume of interaction, the volume of subscription. They would have known what to also upgrade their system. But we never did anything. We waited until the deadline. When banks no longer accepted notes, we started switching over to the Of course, network providers were overwhelmed. These things are digital. They cannot comprehend. That was what we had. Not only providers from the telecoms, also from the banks. So that is why I will call on the federal government to build up a structure, that infrastructure that can run this out already on digital. I want to ask you, sir, the last administration gave us Naira, right?
Yes, very true.
How many Nigerians have that?
I've linked that. Very true.
Oh, link and link. Let them call. They have linked their Naira wallet to their bank. I know that this policy will come back home. It's only the Naira, leave the Naira home. But you see this zero catch, no catch policy, it will come because it will be the for white. Mr. Zion.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Zion. So 017-923-0002, 017-923-0003. Now, do you agree with Zion? During that period, there were reports that, security seemed to have improved, particularly in the case of kidnapping and banditry. That period, for almost a month, all right? I remember even the former CBN governor even made the report that, hey, look, in the past 3 weeks or so, that the amount of or the numbers of kidnapping reports across country had gone down, tremendously. Some even claim, there were even claims that it went down by as much as even 80%. This particular bit of the kidnapping thing was very well established. People say, yeah, we are now seeing that this is like keeping, but we will not pay. Something, but it could even take out medical expenditure, because that period you had several businesses who would decline transfers. And yes, you don't blame the conservatives who were cheap for who they collect 100. 0 at Nigeria Info PH. Please, when you call him, turn down the volume of your radio set. Refrain from making derogatory or defamatory comments. Do not make unsubstantiated and unverified claims. Very importantly, please do not make inciting statements. Just in case you didn't catch all of that.
The views and opinions shared on this program do not represent the position of Nigeria Info FM. Nigeria Info, let's talk.
Anyway, let me move on. And so that policy made people realize that there are other safer ways of carrying out their businesses. But now, because of the cries of many in Nigeria, people are now going back to their old ways. If you check around you, they're almost I don't mean just to rural areas. I did get to see, I don't know about you, but I did get to see videos and pictures of that being carried. I think it was in Kaduna or somewhere in the north. But kind of they didn't have apps. Men when else difficult. Over this time, find us on Facebook and on X at Nigeria Info PH. Is where you find us on Facebook and X. Implementation was also the big problem where the bank, some of the banks were holding this cash. I don't know who they were giving. Should they agree? Should come back? We need to give old notes so that maybe that's going to happen right now. Maybe it's not going to happen. As both notes are in circulation concurrently, you probably get to see a systematic withdrawal or a reduction in the amount that you get to see of old notes. Who knows? I think maybe that's probably what would be better than what people experience in March, April, February, March, but March, April in particular, just before the election started. Those were the days. Good morning, Jude. If anything, it got to show me how resilient Nigerians can be, and also how wicked Nigerians could be. Remember when people were selling Naira notes, 1,000 Naira for 1,000 Naira, and all that? Who are those punished? Are they the questions that they advise them? Right?
Starting with 1,000 and then 200. We're expecting systematically nobody monetary or economic policy that the CBN need to do. But of course, with the approval from the government at center, to the extent that within 18 months, we'll have as the biggest deal would have been 100 Naira. For Christ's sake. Those countries where, like in US, the $100 is the biggest dollar bill. I think they have a deliberate policy where they have made it that way. They are not stupid. I'm thinking that it has come to a point where we think deeply and we denominate systematically that within 18 months we will have only 100 Naira as the biggest money. Mind you, we'll go back when we have 1 Naira and 1 Naira in notes.
Notes
should come out in
notes or in coins.
And then bring back coins. One kind of attitude of how we relate with our currency. What you see is what you use. And then when one kobo, we can still have them.
Okay.
At that point, what 10 Naira cannot buy today, 1 Naira will buy and will still give a change. It's just something that is supposed to be a holistic approach to monetary policy. And of course, whatever thing that is also causing this capital flight to our currency. For crying out, I know that the federal government can directly look into 20 major and to have factories and concession private measures that will create factories and pay back investing into 30 years.
All right, Olufemi, thank you very much. Well, we'll have to put a stop here on our conversation. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Please don't forget you are meant to do your transaction online, even the banks encourage. Now, throughout today, we listen to old school jams from Port Harcourt artists alone. Only every single song has been from a Port Harcourt legend. And I leave you with one. Some of you probably didn't even know he was born in Port Harcourt, grew up in Port Harcourt. Ladies and gentlemen, I love Rika Sani.